It's the bombshell heard around all of sports. Everybody's talking about it. The biggest news in sports headlines today: baseball will be played this month. Not a big trade. Baseball will be played this month, particularly Guardians baseball.
Tanner Bobby the Guardians, and you're listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We have made it through the doldrums of January. It is February. Baseball's finally here. I know it feels like January 37th, but baseball's coming this month, we promise. And for the record, the Juan Soto trade last year from the Padres to the Yankees, that was the Luka Doncic trade. Just for the record, that was what it was. Anybody's curious about that?
I thought you meant Jensen Lewis leaving the television. That was
the other bombshell. Yeah. Well, it is February 3rd here on Locked On Guardians. Buckeye Chuck did not see a shadow. Who cares about Punxsutawney Phil? He's old and washed. Buckeye Chuck didn't see a shadow. So we're getting early spring in Cleveland, and we're talking spring training. Jeff's favorite subject.
He did see a shadow. We're getting 6 more weeks of winter.
I think Phil saw a shadow.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
it's Phil.
We're going with Buckeye Chuck here. Come on, Jeff. We don't care about Punxsutawney Phil. We don't care about Pennsylvania. I don't care about that.
I don't know who Buckeye Chuck is. I have no idea who this is.
Buckeye Chuck. Come on.
No idea.
Well, we're talking spring training. Jeff's favorite subject today. We're talking about opening day roster projection version 1. So we're going to talk about if the last rotation spot or second base is the biggest battle, how open the right field battle will be. We'll talk about handling the pitching staff, and we'll give our roster projection at the end of today's show. And what will the lineup look like? We had a little bit of that discussion Saturday, and we'll round back into that.
Yes, but first, go ahead.
Super Bowl 59 is here. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5 if you win, so you will score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started for today's Locked On Guardians. I am Justin Latta. That's Jeff Ellis. I have been covering the Guardians minor league system since 2007. I have been to spring training but once, but that's okay. I'm going again this year, I hope. But I've been the editor-in-chief of Guardians / Indians Baseball Insider at one time, currently a freelancer at the News Herald and the Morning Journal, and my own website next year in Cleveland.substack.com and Prospects Live. And you can hear me every day here with Jeff, 5 days a week, coming soon.
And I'm Jeff Ellis, currently sick. You can hear it in my voice. So I'm going to be providing, the normal content, but I just wanted to give the trigger warning of congestion.
Jeff's here. He's seriously doesn't get fine. Wanted to say before we get started too, thanks to everybody who came out on Saturday and hung out with us on the virtual chat. We did a great subscriber live stream fest on Saturday. We had 20, 30 people I think at any given time, and Jeff was there. I was there. Mike Mahoney, our friend over covering the corner, was there. Jake Kaufman, formerly 92.3 The Fan, was there, and also my brother-in-law. But we had a good time. But we're going to do that again soon. So sign up to be an insider. The link's on the screen. It's also in the episode description wherever you're listening. We're chatting with subscribers over on the Insider app, and every single day whenever news breaks. And we're also giving free content. We're doing 2 extra episodes a month. We're doing live subscriber chats once in a while too. We enjoyed that. So sign up to be an insider, and we'll do all that fun stuff. And we are just 190 subscribers away as a recording from 4K. So help us get to 4K before the season starts. That'd be a lot of fun. All right, enough with the housekeeping stuff. Let's get into it. So it is finally February. Baseball will get played for the Guardians. Let's get into opening day roster projection version 1, and let's start here. What's the bigger deal going into spring training, Jeff? Your favorite time of year? Is it the starting pitching, where I think we're definitely going to see just the 5th starter spot be competed for? I think the first 4 are pretty much locked up. Or is it second base? What's the bigger spot to watch for in spring training right now?
I mean, part of me wants to say right field over either of them, just because of its own mess. I feel like the 5th starter is going to almost be a default situation. I feel like McKenzie's going to get some degree of, I think, a chance. I think he is essentially, unless he is so bad, he just can't get anything. I feel like he is there till June 1st when they make their moves, their whatever. But I feel like he is almost kind of locked in. I could be wrong, and I know they talk about all the time. He's got to prove it. He's got to prove it, and that's a great thing to say. But with his previous peaks and everything else, I just feel like starting pitching is. I said I could be wrong, and I'll eat my words later. But I feel like that's very much locked in. I feel like second base is a big battle. I do feel like that's legit camp battle. I feel like right field isn't a camp battle. It's just going to be Noel and Brennan likely in some kind of platoon for the time being. Unless, and I guess that's the thing. It's like, can Chase DeLauder force his way on? That becomes the situation where that becomes a real battle. It's interesting because I feel like at the start of the year, you and I listened and were part of every single press conference that occurred. And it felt like over the course of those press conferences, the responses to people asking about Noel got less and less positive in those meetings. They never got negative, but they definitely lost some of the early positivity. So, I think it's probably second base, just because I do think that Tristan gets that opportunity.
Yeah, I think so too. That's kind of where I'm at. Is I think they're going to give him every chance in spring training. So I think second base is bigger because the rotation should be improved. Like, you're going to have, I believe, at least to start the year, last year was a disaster. Like, you had, obviously, Shane Bieber was healthy in spring training. That sounded great, right? But Gavin Williams got hurt in spring training. We don't know who's going to get hurt through spring training. Like, I think we can safely say with no doubt that there will be some pitcher in spring training who will have an elbow issue, who will have some sort of injury when they start ramping up for the year. And there's going to be someone who has Tommy John or is going to miss the start of the season. Like, I mean, I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but I think you have to bet on that being a possibility because it happens so often, and it happened last year. So if everyone's healthy, then things are better. Like, you're not going to get Bieber back until the second half, but you've got Tanner, who should be a year better, even though the projection systems are weirdly down on him, which we'll talk about another day. You got Gavin, hopefully coming through healthy. I'm still very sold on the addition of Luis Ortiz. I really do believe in that. Agreed. We'll see what they can get. I'll see what they can get this year out of Ben Lively if they can repeat that. But I don't think they also have to count on Ben Lively as heavily this year because they've got more options. So if that doesn't work out the way it did a year ago, if he's not like the guy who's holding it together with glue for them, they don't have to count on that. But yeah, I think they'll give Tristan McKenzie every opportunity in spring training to win that job. Like you said, they're saying all the things about he's got to come and compete, and that's great. I hope they stick to that. I'm not saying I don't want Tristan to win because I like Tristan. He's a good dude, and I know the talent's in there. We saw it in 2023 or 2022, I should say. But he's got to prove it, and they have to make him prove it, and he's got to go in there with confidence. It came out last year. He was healthy. Like everyone said, oh, he's not healthy. He's going to have surgery. He was healthy all year.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's not a health issue, it's just a confidence issue. It's not a stuff issue. The stuff works. The stuff is good. It really is a strike-throwing confidence issue for McKenzie. Whether that's confidence in his own stuff or that's just confidence in his own health, I think is two different things for him. So yeah, I think second base, right field we could talk about in a second, but second base becomes bigger to me because I think the rotation, barring something unforeseen, barring major injury, which we can't predict, I think it is Tanner, Gavin, Ben, Ortiz, and Tristan to start the season just because of the options. I think that's where it goes. And maybe you could throw Tristan in the bullpen if you don't feel confident in the rotation option. But I also don't know if I believe in Tristan as a reliever myself either. So I think at least for April, it's those five. And I think that makes second base a little bit bigger because you've got to find someone right now who you're confident in. And that person's got to be able to hold off Travis Bazzana.
And then just as a counterpoint to that, like if we're talking about a guy whose big issues are confidence and belief in oneself and belief in their stuff and confidence in their body staying healthy, what do we think is going to happen to that confidence when that player is asked to move to a role they've never done before, in a thing they've never done, in a role that is a clear demotion? Like, the additional problem with moving to the bullpen is A, he's never really done it, and B, it's a demotion. Like, that's going to affect his like for a guy that's not going to help his confidence. So it's kind of like, if he doesn't make the rotation, putting him in the bullpen might be the worst way. Like, I mean, they don't have another option, but like it's hard on that
if they
regard
want
as
to hang
well.
on to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got a lot of time and money invested in him for sure, considering a draft pick. And the other thing too is like for Tristan, for like you said, for confidence issues, the role he would have in the bullpen is going to be kind of a. Remember when Carlos Carrasco was out of options, and
Mhm.
that was like the bullpen thing was the last ditch effort, and it worked. It saved his career, and he was great, and it was a big deal. That's kind of where Tristan would be. Like Tristan would be in that last reliever spot as like a long guy. He'd be the Pedro Avila this year, really. And I know Pedro, everyone's upset about him refusing his assignment and leaving and that whole thing, but that's a mop up role, and
Yep.
that's not a money making role either. So that hurts Tristan's salary too. That's a concern. That's a confidence concern as well. I think people miss the point too often, and I shouldn't say miss the point, but I think people who don't talk to coaches, talk to players, and aren't around. Not that we're around as much as anybody else, but we've been around enough that just being a reliever doesn't make you healthier, doesn't make you better. Like we don't know if Tristan can pitch back-to-back days, or he can pitch 2 innings out of the bullpen and recover and pitch a couple days later. Those are not easier asks than starting. It's just a different way to prepare. Relievers are going 100% in all of their outings. Like you're asked to go out there and kind of air it out for an inning or two, and that works for some guys, but it doesn't always work for other ones. And Tristan might be one of those guys where that doesn't necessarily work. But they got to figure out something with him because he is out of options. I think it makes sense to stick with him to start the year because that way you figure out April and May, see if he can do it, and that allows you to reserve depth. That allows you to send some guys to AAA to build things out. So we'll get into some of those depth options. We'll talk about second base. We'll talk about right field for sure, and then we'll give our opening day roster projection at the end of today's Locked On Guardians. All right, Super Bowl is almost here. We know Super Bowl 59, 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities. Almost not endless, but someone's going to win. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether you want to predict the first touchdown, call the MVP. Hey, I'm going for Travis Kelce because Cleveland guy, right? That's what I want to bet on. You can bet on the coin flip. FanDuel makes it easier to get in on the action. Live betting all game long. Adjust your bets as the game unfolds. All kinds of fun stuff that could pop up. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what's going on the field. And if you place a $5 bet, you can win $200 in bonus bets. That's huge. So download the app, go to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5. And if you win that $5 bet, whatever it is, doesn't matter the bet, put $5 down, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets from FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official Super Bowl partner, Super Bowl 59. All right, let's talk a little bit of depth behind that because we were talking about the rotation and Tristan McKenzie. I actually think they're better set up to handle things this year. Now, that really depends on how guys unfold at AAA because, they're in the same boat with Logan Allen that they are Tristan McKenzie, except Logan Allen's got options.
Yeah.
And I think this is Joey Cantillo's last option year, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this is okay. So this is Logan and Joey's last option year. So they can option to AAA. It's the last time they can do it this year, barring, injuries. And then you have Doug Nikhazy, and then there's Slade Ciccone. We'll talk about that a little bit in a second. But, you have those 3 or 4 guys.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're better positioned to handle, like I said, if Ben Lively doesn't work out as well this year as he did a year ago, or if someone gets hurt. The thing is, though, I feel like they are kind of in the same boat with Logan Allen as they were with McKenzie. Like Logan Allen had it figured out, and now he doesn't have it figured out. Joey Cantillo showed some flashes, but he also didn't. And then Doug Nikhazy, I think is just a depth guy right now because he hasn't made a start.
Yeah. 100%. It's a better situation to be in. We talked about the show we did Saturday, and this team I brought up on that show, they made the postseason, even though they spent the first half of the year with 3 of the worst starters in the American League. They didn't have that depth a year ago. And we're talking about all of those players. And, again, part of me, I still think Nikhazy is a future lefty reliever is probably his best outcome. I'm still not all the way sold on him as a starter consistently, but when you look at Slade Ciccone, I know they got some work to do there. Like, I don't think that was a trade for a guy to be on the opening day roster because I think he needs to learn a new fastball. But you're hoping maybe Logan Allen can refigure it out. He can reset. You're hoping McKenzie steps up. But if they don't work, that is why you have that depth. And it's not just the guys we talked about. Like, by about mid-year, I mean, we could be talking Austin Peterson. We could be talking Parker Messick. We could be talking that next wave that should spend significant time in AAA, which, I mean, honestly, Logan Allen, Gavin Williams, and Tanner didn't spend a ton of time in AAA before they got. I mean, that was necessity, in fairness. But if this team's contending and they need to go get someone, and that is the best option, necessity is the mother of promotions.
Yeah. Well, one of the guys that will not be pitching for the Guardians, not that we didn't think he would be, but one of the guys that will not be pitching for the Guardians is Jack Flaherty, one of our favorites, one of your favorites. Jack Flaherty is going back to the Tigers on a 2-year deal, $35 million. Some breaking news in the middle of the show. So the Tigers rotation is once again very good. They've spent $16 million on Alex Cobb and now $35 million on Jack Flaherty, plus Tarek Skubal, plus Reese Olson, Casey Mize, Jackson Jobe. We're going to do an episode later this week on.
But that's the thing. Like, I don't know if Jobe is going to start the year with them, but I mean, they had one starter in the postseason
for a reason. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes them deadly. I'm not saying this if you're a Tigers fan. Don't be aggrieved at me. It's getting Flaherty back or Flattery. Shout out to Everyday. To Matt with Skubal and Olsen. And, I'm a Mize guy. I've liked him for a while as a 5. I think it's a fine. But, I mean, they have as much risk as Cleveland with Mize's health, with Cobb's health, with Olsen's had a lot of health issues, too. It's like, Jobe, I'm curious to see how Jobe responds. It was a rough postseason. Like, he had a postseason that could be one of those that, like, messes with the guy.
Yeah.
So
we'll do an episode. I'll probably do a solo show this week and kind of do an AL Central look around and see where things stack up. But let's get back
talk about all the Twins free agent signings.
And thanks for listening to that episode of Locked On Guardians. That'll be it. Yeah. We thought the Guardians haven't done a lot. The Twins have done absolutely nothing. This makes the Tigers payroll, by the way, for what it's worth, the biggest in the AL Central.
Did they pass the Royals?
The Twins did have the highest still, but now it's the Tigers, so we'll see. All right, so second base. This is going to be the weird one to me. Like, we kind of know who's involved in the pit in the last rotation spot, right? Because they're going to stretch out Slade Ciccone as a starter, and then they'll see what happens. I don't really have a good feel for like who's going to be included. Like, we feel like it's going to be like some people feel like Juan Brito is going to be given the edge, but like Gabriel Arias is in a similar situation as Tristan McKenzie. And there's Freeman and Schneemann. And then, like, Angel Martinez hasn't really been mentioned in the second base battle, but he could play second base. So, like, this one's a little confusing to me. I think this is wide open. I think it's wide open. I would like to see them include Martinez just because I think he showed some flashes a year ago, and I think they're pretty committed to Lane Thomas playing center field, which we'll get to in a little bit. So I would like to see Martinez included in the second base battle. I mean, I'm definitely team Juan Brito here in terms of what he did last year. AAA, and I do believe in him as a prospect, but I really am curious to see like how honestly open this is, because they gave a lot of chances to Freeman and Schneemann a year ago to play. So
yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to the options, on a very base level, and it's everything I said about McKenzie kind of applies to Arias as well, because we know that if he's not starting, that it's been an issue in the past. It's been an issue in terms of what we see, that he does not, he can be, he feels like a bit of a sulker, that like if he doesn't have that gig, that we don't get the best fit forward with him. And that's why he ended up in AAA. So it's, I thought, again, to go back to our thing, I thought Mike Mahoney had a great point the other day where, yes, this team is going to open up 4 40-man slots when camp begins, but they probably would rather have some flexibility for pitching and not make those just all hitters. So it's like, I think there's a world where Arias is let go before the end of camp if he doesn't get one of those roles. I really think, in this particular thing, if Arias isn't the second baseman, he's not in Cleveland. I think I don't think you can run him out as a bench bat. I think they kind of have seen how that goes with him not having any options. So I think if they, I think it's interesting when you go back to us being part of that Jimenez post conference. It was Antonetti, right? Like he brought up Arias on his own. We didn't ask, but he brought him up. So there's still some belief there. To me, it feels like I don't know. Maybe this is my own bias. It's like I think Freeman and Schneemann are like interchangeable backups. I just think that Arias and Brito have that ceiling of a above league average player. And I don't see that with the other two. So I think it's one of those two. It is interesting how little no one talks about Martinez. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird.
I do worry the profile is a little extreme. Like he does a lot of his chase rates were right up there with, I feel like, Noel's when he was up here. Like he could not lay off anything. And we have heard, when we've heard the shifting narrative on Noel, it's definitely shifted back to what you and I brought up, when he came up and people got mad at us, which is, chasing bad pitches. It makes it almost impossible to succeed. So I think that could be that they're not as enamored with that type of approach. And I think that could be why like a Martinez is, and I don't know how he's probably got more options than any of the other guys too. So that probably also plays an effect.
Yeah, I can't imagine they're going to have Arias on the roster in a bench role because we've seen that doesn't work. Like that, I think it's pretty clear that is not a thing that benefits him. So yeah, I'm with you. I think if he is not the second baseman, which I still think second base is such a weird position for him, like it doesn't fit him very well. But also, like, is he going to be better at second? I mean, in theory, since we thought he was a good defender at short, in theory he should be better at second. But he struggled this offseason in the Dominican Republic playing shortstop so badly that he got moved to right field for them. And part of that we heard might be due to like some weight gain, and I don't know if it's good or bad weight gain, but like I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see how he reports to camp and see what happens there. I wish Martinez would be more included because I like him as a second base. I know the approach is kind of a concern there. Like I said, I'm Team Brito at this point. I would be, but we talked about this on Saturday. What's the last time this team opened the year intentionally with a rookie in a position? Like they did it with Quan, but the idea was they were going to send Quan back down when Josh Taylor came back in 2022, and before that it was Tyler Naquin. So like they normally don't set out to have a rookie in their opening day lineup. Maybe that'll change with this regime, and maybe it'll change because you said this on Saturday, or someone said this on Saturday. How much do you care about Juan Brito's service time when you have Travis Pisano?
Yeah, I did say that.
Yeah, like just if he's the best guy for the job, forget status. Like you expect Brito to be replaced by Pisano in 6 months or a year at this point. Anyway, you could trade him if it doesn't work. You can demote him, or he's played first, he's played right field. He doesn't really have a position he's good at, so
if it works out. I mean, isn't the perfect way this all works out? He hits really well, struggles defensively. Not to say that Pisano is going to be a world beater at second base defensively, but at the end of the year, Manzardo proves himself. Santana walks, Manzardo is your first baseman. All of a sudden, Brito is your DH. Like, DH. Isn't that like that's a pathway that makes sense? Am I wrong?
If it all works out, or you just trade Brito for something you need, if you really feel like you want to leave that open for other things. All right.
Well, if he has like a Brandon Lau type bat, which could be one of the outcomes, like, there's ways to approach it.
Yeah, that could be in there. All right. We're going to talk about right field, and then we'll give our first roster projection of 2025 coming up. Also want to make sure you guys want to go back and say, like, be an insider. We had a lot of fun Saturday. I want to say that again. We had lots of fun with everybody on Saturday. Just talking. We talked baseball for about 2 hours. Just all stuff Guardians, some inside stories, experiences. Everybody was just getting into their own stuff. Like, I feel like we had a really good time. I really enjoyed it, and I hope everybody will be listening. Will become an insider so we can share bonus content with you and have some inside stories and just have, chats every once in a while. And like I said, it's just a lot of fun. And you have access to a lot of additional content that'll be out there as well. All right. Right field. I think I said this on our hot take show last week. So if you haven't heard the hot take show, go back and listen to that. I'm gonna say there is a good. I'm not saying it's going to happen for sure. I think it should, but I think there's a good probability. I think there's a good chance that they're going to give Chase DeLauder a chance to open the year on the Major League roster. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think they are going to at least give him a fair shot to open the season on the 26-man roster, because last year he played so well. I'm not saying spring training performance means anything. We know it doesn't. But they kept him up in camp the whole time without him being an official non-roster invitee, and they had to have a special conversation with him to say, like, we're not, this is not a reflection on how your camp went. We're just, we're sending you down to minor league camp. I think now that he's an official non-roster invitee, I think they'll at least give him a lot of opportunity to see if he can crack the opening day roster.
I still strongly disagree. Just because I think they're going to want to manipulate service time, and I think they do want to, as much as I talked about Noel in the first half, I still think there is a overriding feeling of giving him an opportunity out there. So I still think it's like, see if, see how Chase does. When he got demoted, he struggled a bit and then he got hurt. So I think at the end of the day, when it comes to a first round pick with power potential, if there's not a contract in place, they're going to manipulate service time.
I'm less worried about Chase DeLauder's service time because of the injuries and the weird swing.
He's younger than Juan Brito. Like, he's still young.
Yeah.
He's a very young kid.
He is. And of course, that's why the Guardians tend to like that type.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to be less worried about his service time. A, because you get the lockout coming. So let's just be honest. There's going to be a lockout coming. B, I think you want to line him up as best you can with Ramirez and Bazana and Manzardo and make that kind of your core five. Is that five? My math is bad again. Like, I think you want to try to maintain. Yeah. And let's be honest. You also may only have limited time left with Quan. Like, if they're not going to sign Quan to an extension, then you got limited time left with Quan. Let's be honest. So I think they want to line that up as best they can. I'm not worried. I don't think it's worth being worried about DeLauder's service time, because
they are always worried about it.
But there's
they've always been.
No, because he's not Francisco Lindor. They are service time manipulators. The Manzardo thing was weird, but they've done it with guys who are long-term concerns, like Francisco Lindor for sure, because they knew their time with him was going to be 6 years. They knew they were not
done it with most of the top 10 prospect guys.
Who else? Intentionally that didn't earn their way up, because they didn't do it with Quan, they didn't do it with Naquin. Not that Naquin didn't matter, but they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, Quan was never like and he was a back of the top 10 guy his final year in the minors. I'm just trying to think.
There's no case for this. There's really no case for it.
When you they just haven't had as many hitters to mess around and do things with. But
the last one was Lindor, and the Lindor one was legitimate because you had to worry about that. I don't think.
I mean, they kind of did it with Manzardo. I mean, we talked about that. It was still. It felt like service time manipulation a year ago with him. I think the difference between a Brito and a Manzardo and a DeLauder is, I don't know if DeLauder is going to hit for power because of the swing, but he has the ability to. I think power in particular is so much more expensive in players. It's not just the manipulating service time to get more service time. It's also, when you play it that way, it helps bring down some of the arbitration costs. So I think it's a double sword. I think any guy with power potential, they're going to manipulate with.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I can't disagree with you there, but I don't know. I also think there's a chance that he's got platoon issues too, and that's going to limit him as well.
No, I agree with that.
I also think that they're not beholden to Will Brennan. Like, I still think I think you still open the year with Noel, and you have like a Noel DeLauder platoon if you're not beholden to Will Brennan, because I think they've given Will Brennan plenty of chances, and let's be honest, they didn't exactly stick with him. Like, I know they brought him back after the injury, but it's not like, they were trying anybody in right field last year at some point. So I don't think they're beholden to Will Brennan. So I think DeLauder might have a legitimate shot. I don't know. We'll see. All right, let's go and see if we agree on our first roster projection of the year, Jeff. So I've got Tanner, Ben, Gavin, Luis, Ortiz, and Tristan McKenzie as the 5.
Agreed.
Yeah. And then again, for depth, we've got Logan Allen, Joey Cantillo, Doug Nikhazy. For the bullpen, I've got Slade Ciccone starting in the bullpen. That's the only thing that's open right now. Obviously, Clase, Kate Smith, Hunter Gaddis, Paul Sewald, if I know how to spell. If you're watching on YouTube, I screwed that up. Tim Herron, Andrew Walters, Sabrowski, and then Ciccone. Trevor Stephan shouldn't be back until later in the month of April, maybe May.
I've got Enright for Ciccone just because I think they want to, if you're going to work on that pitch with Slade, it might be easier if he's still starting, or you might want to keep him stretched out. So with Ciccone, I have Enright as like A, reward, and B, that's you can put him in that long role and you're not as concerned, I think, as some of the other guys. But
you could do that. You could do that. I kind of have Ciccone on the bullpen for the same reason, is because I think they're going to keep somebody in the bullpen who can give them some length to start the year because of how slow they play the starters, which I think is the wrong way to go about it. By the way, we've seen that. I think they can stretch out. We know they're going to stretch Ciccone out in spring training, and they're going to decide what the best role for him is. So I think Ciccone could be your insurance for Tristan McKenzie. You keep him in the majors, keep him in kind of the long role, and he's McKenzie insurance. Like you're saying Enright is. I'm saying Ciccone is going to fill that role.
I could also see you of the non-roster invitees, someone that because you have those extra pitching slots.
You do.
That it could be someone we're not even discussing yet, someone they're bringing into camp who could end up being in that vet role in the bullpen and then getting cut when guys get healthy.
Riley Pine, he's going to be on the open day roster. You heard it here from Jeff first.
No,
Riley
not
Pine
Riley Pine,
but
maybe someone else.
Yeah, there's Luis Frias, there's Parker Mashinsky.
Yeah, I could see Frias. I'll say Frias because I just think they're going to want to keep Ciccone stretched out. That's the one reason I disagree with you on it, as I just think the desire to keep him in that starting role.
It could be, very well could be. I think that's a possibility for sure. By the way, for anybody asking too, the injured list thing, I don't know how soon you can do it. I know you can't do it like the day spring training starts, but you can start doing it later in March.
I think it's in February. It's once it
is
starts
it February?
Up. Yeah.
I have to look at that again. I'm not.
No, it's
not sure. I know one of our listeners, Andrew Kinsman, I know can probably tell us for sure. But let's point this out. So whenever they're allowed to do it, Shane Bieber will be on there and David Fry will be on there. I don't think they'll do it for Trevor Stephan because I think he's eligible to come back. Maybe they'll do it just to open up a spot, but I don't think that Trevor Stephan will need all that time, the 60-day IL. But for sure, we know Bieber and Fry will be on there. Don't expect them to do it to Daniel Espino. They don't do that to prospects. They did it to Carlos Vargas one year because they didn't have any of their options because their 40-man was totally, to the guild. So Espino, even though he'll be hurt, will not be on the 60-day IL because that starts his service time and it gives him major league money. So they won't do that.
It's one guy's report. So basically, once you start spring training, 60-day DL is open.
Okay, so there you go. So yeah, I would expect Bieber and Fry for sure. That's 2, and then we'll see how they handle Stephan.
Because I think since it's spring training, it's you can have a guy on the DL and they're still working their way back and taking part in spring training. So they could end up placing someone like Stephan because you can be on the 60-day disabled list and it doesn't matter unless it's opening day. You basically has to be 60 days before opening day. So I'd have to sit down and do the math, which I haven't done.
Yeah. All right. For the lineup, we talked about the lineup on Saturday. Somebody asked us who do you think is going to hit 4th on Saturday. This is not the lineup I would go with. This is the lineup I think they'll go with. I have Stephen Kwan. This is against right-handers. I have Kwan, Thomas, Ramirez, Santana, Manzardo, Brennan Noel, Brito, Bo Naylor, Brian Rocchio. That's my usual lineup to start the year. It's not the lineup I would go with, and I'll save it to the end. But that's not the lineup I would go with. But I think that's what it'll be to start the year.
Yeah. I mean, basically the only debate point is what we've already done, second base.
Right field, yeah.
I mean, I think that's going to be the right field situation. I think that's kind of what they're leaning toward. Or it just feels like that's where they're going.
Not Manzardo. It's they hit Manzardo second in the playoffs, but I think they'll they'll put Thomas back up there and see if that works again.
I don't think
they'll
you can put him up there against righties. He's been horrendous against righties for his career. He's like a borderline platoon bat. So I don't know. I think you gotta
maybe you switch him against righties. Maybe.
Yeah.
Although, are they going to give Manzardo a full time? Is he going to play against lefties?
Well, that's the other thing too, and that's why right field's such a mess. Because like in an ideal world, it might be Manzardo's been pretty poor against lefties in the minors. Let's be honest.
He was better last year. He was better last year.
He improved. He's not Chase DeLauder, but he's not. You know, there's some issues. So I mean, maybe it's hard to say, right? Like,
yeah,
in maybe an ideal world, he would be the platoon with Noel, but like, that's not what's happening.
Yeah. For the bench, I have obviously Hedges, one of Noel Brennan, and then I have Freeman and Sheeman both making the roster just because of the handedness. And we talked about how if Gabriel Arias is not your opening day starter at a position, he won't be on the roster. So they're not. I don't think they're going to put Arias on the bench. So I have Freeman and Sheeman for the versatility again, like last year. So essentially the same roster minus David Fry to start the year and minus Josh Naylor and Andres Jimenez.
Yeah, I think if like we talked about, if Brito is here is a starter, then Arias is gone. So all logical to me. Very uninspiring bench, but it is what it is.
It is. Yeah, it is an uninspiring bench, unfortunately. David Fry, they're hoping, I think, June come back there, and we'll see how that goes. There's guys in the minors that could emerge, like, we'll see how fast Travis Bazzana goes. We'll see about Angel Martinez making an impact, and the projection systems love Jonathan Rodriguez, even though we do not. So
Cooper Ingle will be might probably get the AAA this year, and
I think he'll start in AA. We'll see. I think
he
Cody
will,
Huff's
but I
gonna
think
get,
I agree.
AAA,
but I think he gets to AAA this year, and it's like projections and statistical systems are definitely riding high on Cooper Ingle. So
yeah. My lineup, by the way, this is how I would go. We talked about this on Saturday. I would have Carlos Santana did a great job in 20, and he was here as a leadoff hitter. I would put Santana back as the leadoff hitter. I put Kwan second because we just know Jose Ramirez won't hit second because he doesn't like it. Neither does Santana, by the way. So Santana, Kwan, Jose. I would have I'd have Lane Thomas hitting fourth against lefties, and then Manzardo fourth against righties.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go with your Noel Brennan platoon after that, and then you've got Burrito Naylor Rocchio. I like that one much better, but we'll see. Maybe they'll surprise us. I don't know. And as a reminder too, like we're talking about opening day roster projection, let's also remember that the roster on March 20 whatever is not going to be the roster on September 20 whatever. Like these things change. This is just the roster to start the year. A lot of things change. Guys get hurt. Guys struggle. They go back down. And I'm not saying this is like, oh, they're going to be, if there's a position or the roster spot you're worried about that they're weak at. I'm not saying like, oh, they're going to be fine. Don't worry, because Marlon Byrd and Colin Cowgill started the outfield in 2016 and they went to the World Series. But just, things change. Trades happen, injuries happen, guys from the minors emerge. I don't think either you or I thought Angel Martinez was going to be playing last year. It's
at all.
Yeah, at all. All right. So yeah, things change. And did we think David Fry was going to be an everyday guy last year? No, we didn't, and he basically was. So this is just the roster as we see it on March 20 whatever and July 20 whatever. Yeah, and September 20 whatever. It could be very different.
They're set up to be salary wise about basically where they were a year ago, which then they went out and added money at the deadline. They were able to do that. So like they're setting themselves up so if they're contending, they can go out and add. And that's the thing.
Hopefully they're in a position to do that. Yeah.
Yep. I do want to give a quick shout out to Maton Gel 00 who left us a new iTunes review. We always do a shout out and thank you when those happen. So I wanted to say thank you for the review. We appreciate those. Yeah. We just know the algorithm pushes the more reviews, the more likely we are to be recommended. And we know that we have like Piv and other people blanking on the gentleman who's a White Sox fan. A lot of fan bases actually listen to the show and get some enjoyment out of it. So
yeah, we got Tigers fans, we got Cardinals fans, White Sox fans. Yeah.
So special shout out to all of the non-Guardians fans who are listening today.
Yeah, we do appreciate that. Subscribe, review. Again, sign up to be an insider if you can, and enjoy the conversations with us. Enjoy the bonus content that comes along with that, and email the show if you're not on social media. and you're not watching on YouTube, you can email us to get in touch with us too. We're at loguardiansshow@gmail.com. All kinds of good stuff over there. All right. So we're still 3 days a week for now. We won't be 5 days a week again until
next week.
Is it next week? We're back to 5 days next week. Okay.
Next week,
so
yeah.
2 episodes this week, I think, what it means to be a top honor prospect. And we'll do a look around the AL Central, especially with Jack Flaherty going back to the Tigers. So we'll have all that coming up for you this week.
$25 million this year, by the way, on that contract for him. It's a $35 million. It's 25 at the $10 million for next year. 20 million if he gets to 15 starts. Doesn't have to be good starts, just 15 starts.
Full player option. He was good last year.
Yeah,
he was good.
So it'd be a 25 and a 20, which is not bad for him. But yeah. I want to thank you all for joining us. Remember to rate and review, hit the thumbs up, simple things you can do to help the show grow. Thank you all very much. And again, I'm sorry for the cold and the cough drops and the everything, but thank you for joining us, and go Guardians go.